In March of 2019, millions of people went looking for something they had left somewhere safe. A first song, a band that never made it, a voice recorded in a bedroom at 2 in the morning, when they were 17 and certain the world was about to change. And they found nothing. Not a broken link. Not an error. Just silence, where 12 years of a generation's music used to be. 50 million songs. That is the number they would eventually put on it. The company that lost them called it an accident, a server migration. Files corrupted, it said, with no way to recover them. But people who understood how the internet actually works did not believe that, and one of them said so out loud, immediately. This is the file on MySpace, not how it lost to Facebook, but what it did with everything you gave it, and why. This month, it is asking for your trust again. To understand what was lost, you have to remember what it was. In 2003, two men named Tom Anderson and Chris DeWolf built a website in Los Angeles. It was not the first social network. It was just the first one that lets you make the page yours. Bad fonts, auto-playing songs, glitter, a background you chose yourself, badly, at midnight, and it had something no platform has ever really replicated since. When you signed up, you already had a friend, Tom. His photo was there waiting, a guy glancing back over his shoulder in front of a white wall, smiling like he'd been expecting you. For an entire generation, that was the first face on the internet that ever said hello. What people forget is how completely it won. By the summer of 2006, the tracking firm Hitwise ranked MySpace the most visited website in the United States, ahead of Google, ahead of Yahoo. For the week ending July 8th, nearly 1 in every 20 American internet visits went to a page someone had decorated themselves. It was not a social network anymore. It was where American culture was happening, and it was music. Before streaming ruled everything, before algorithmic playlists decided what you'd hear next, unsigned bands uploaded their songs to MySpace because it was one of the only places on earth where a kid with a guitar and no money could be heard by strangers. 14 million artists eventually put their work there. Most of them were never famous. That turns out to matter enormously. In July of 2005, Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation bought a company that owned it for around $580 million. At the time it was called a steal. A legacy media empire had just bought a future. And then the empire did what empires do to gardens. The pages filled with advertising. Then more advertising. Spam accounts multiplied. Redesigns were promised, delayed, argued over. The thing that had made it beloved, that it was messy and yours, became a liability to a company that needed predictable inventory to sell. Meanwhile, in a dorm room, something clean and quiet and ruthless was growing. By April of 2008, Facebook had passed it. And here is where every other version of this story stops. The cluttered pages, the better competitor, the lesson about innovation. That story is true. It is also the least interesting thing that happened here. Because losing was not the betrayal. What came after was. In June of 2011, News Corporation sold MySpace for about $35 million, roughly 6 cents for every dollar it had paid. The buyer was an advertising company called Specific Media, run by two brothers, Chris and Tim Vanderhook. Justin Timberlake joined the group, and the site stopped being a place people lived and became a thing that was owned. Now, here is the part almost nobody connects. In 2016, the world learned that MySpace had been breached. A seller offered the details of more than 360 million accounts, usernames, emails, passwords, believed taken around 2013. The same seller was, at that moment, also selling 117 million stolen LinkedIn accounts. 360 million people had carried a MySpace account for years without thinking about it. Most had stopped visiting. They assumed the site had gone quiet. It hadn't. It was still holding everything they had ever handed it. And the songs were not the first thing it lost control of. So ask yourself the question those people never thought to ask. Everything you uploaded, the songs, the photographs, the videos, the version of yourself you were at 19, where exactly was it? Who was paying to keep it? And what happens to 12 years of a generation's memory when the people paying decide it is no longer worth the money? In March of 2019, the answer arrived. Users noticed their old music simply would not play. The company confirmed it. Due to server migration, it said, Files were corrupted and unable to be transferred over to the updated site. And then the sentence that ended it: there is no way to recover the lost data. Everything uploaded between 2003 and 2015 was gone. An estimated 50 million songs from roughly 14 million artists. Photographs, videos, 12 years, not damaged, gone, with no backup anyone could reach. It remains one of the largest losses of cultural material in the history of the internet, and it happened not to a museum or an archive, but to the only copy a lot of people had. And this is where it stops being an accident story. On March 18th, the day it broke, Andy Baio, Kickstarter's first chief technology officer, wrote publicly that he was, in his words, deeply skeptical this was an accident. Flagrant incompetence, he wrote. Maybe bad PR, but it still sounds better than admitting you couldn't be bothered with the cost of hosting 50 million old songs. To be clear, MySpace has always maintained this was a technical failure. Baio's is an accusation, not a finding, but no explanation has ever satisfied him or the artists. And here's what it cost you, because this part isn't really about MySpace. Every song on that server belonged, legally, to the person who made it. What they didn't own was the shelf. When the shelf goes, the work goes, and no clause anywhere gets it back. If something you made or loved exists in exactly one place, and that place is free, you are not the customer, you are the inventory. Keep your own copy of anything you aggrieve. It cost 14 million people everything they'd recorded to teach that. Which brings us to this month. In August of 2026, in a new documentary about the platform, the Vanderhook brothers confirmed what many assumed would never happen. We are stewards of the MySpace brand at this point, Tim Vanderhook said, and we are going to relaunch MySpace. We're just waiting for the right time to do it. No date, no product, no details, and no Tom. Maybe it works. People are exhausted by feeds that decide for them, and there is a real hunger for something that feels like a room you decorated yourself. But understand precisely what is being offered. The company inviting you to come back and build a home, there is the same company that lost the last one, and never gave the 14 million people it belonged to an explanation they could accept. So tell me in the comments, what did you lose on MySpace? And would you upload anything to it again?